The biggest question we need to answer with a video like this is what qualifies a niche brand to be here? I just have three main criterion that each of these brands in this video must meet. First, and this may not be important to all of you, but I know many of you guys care about this, high quality packaging. The box and stuff, that's cool, but I'm talking about the bottle. You can simply feel it when you hold it in your hand that you're holding quality. The tactile plays such a big role that is so easy to overlook in fragrances, because obviously we're not carrying the bottles around with us. But if you go out to a perfume store, you see the bottle, visual is one of course, you pick it up, tactile. How it feels in your hand. Secondly, consistently dimensional and interesting scent profiles that smell of high grade ingredients. You know it when you smell it. It's not just the smell itself. You can really start to tell that the more fragrances you expose yourself to, but also there's a feeling, there's a texture to the way that the fragrance enters your nostrils. You can detect nuance. You don't smell everything all at once. It doesn't come at you as this one overwhelming blend of everything. It kind of trails. Again, at least if you're asking me, that is quality. And finally, all of these brands will give you the opportunity to try all of their offerings by way of samples or discovery sets, official samples and discovery sets, just to make sure that you love them. Now, there are many niche brands that I truly love, that I feature, and that I will continue to feature that don't meet all of these criterion. Typically the third one. They don't always give you a chance to sample their fragrances, and I know that can often be the biggest deterrent for people trying niche fragrances, period. Now, of course, most brands are available from third-party decanters, Decant X being my absolute go-to. But for this video, I'm focusing on those brands from which you can directly try their official samples and discovery sets, even if they might be distributed by a source outside of the brand. Now, I could turn this into a series. There's many other brands I can include here, so if you want to see something like that, make sure you subscribe, you like this video, and you comment down below on something that interests you about the video. So let's dive right into it. Now, as you can see by the title, there's 7 houses we're talking about in this video. I have 2 fragrances per house that I'll be discussing. I'm going to go through them very briefly because there's 14 fragrances here. I don't want this to take too long. I'll just give you a quick overview of each fragrance. First house we're going to talk about is Chris Collins. Chris Collins is one of my favorite niche houses right now. They offer such beautiful and distinctive quality in their fragrances. They have some unique offerings. They have a beautiful cohesiveness throughout the line. You can see it in their bottles. I love this new design that they've gone with. They started adding slightly more blingy aspects to their bottles, namely these plates and the caps as well. The 2 fragrances I have here are African Rooibos and Oud Galoré. These are 2 of my absolute favorite fragrances in my collection, period, and definitely 2 of my favorites from the house. There are many I still have yet to try, so I have to do my due diligence and do a little bit more discovery with this house. But of the ones that I have, these 2 are my favorites thus far. African Rooibos is this smoky, sweet, herbal tea like fragrance with a little bit of bright, sparkling quality, almost like a fruity citrus aspect to it, but it gets kind of deep and warm, maybe a little bit woody as it dries down. Ultimately, it comes off as a pretty versatile fragrance you can wear for almost any occasion if you love it. Oud Galoré, I tend to save this for the evening times in the fall and winter. This is a very easy to understand rose oud with warm, spicy cinnamon with this buttery, creamy orris root in there that just makes it so smooth. The oud here is a little bit more on the medicinal side than it is on something funky or barnyard, as people say. Nothing like that. Really easy to wear, smells very elegant, smells very opulent. That is the house of Chris Collins. We got to talk about the house of Zaharoff. They check all the boxes for this criteria. 2 of their more recent additions to their line, from the signature line, we have Black Rose Halfeti, and then we have the newest, at least at this point in time, Signature Bloom, which I believe is a limited edition. And you can see just by the bottles themselves, very unique, very ornate, very beautiful. They are custom bottles. Zaharoff has these bottles made by a custom bottle maker. They're not stock. If you know anything about what it takes to run a perfume brand, that is quite an expense. Halfeti Black Rose is a black rose fragrance, very natural, dry, green, fresh, but kind of dark smelling rose that gets almost a little bit sweet and resinous as it dries on my skin. It has a multifaceted nature. I'm gonna actually give this a spray in the air. I find this to be very elegant. And it has a little bit of this barbershop quality in there. It has the original signature Pour Homme DNA tucked away in there. Kind of a clean lavender feel, but shrouded by this dark, but still kind of fresh, very natural smelling rose. Beautiful. And another one in the floral vein is Signature Bloom, which I like a whole lot more than I was expecting. This is a white floral forward fragrance, jasmine, orange blossom, gardenia. And if you're not a fan of white florals, you might still like this, because I'm not the biggest fan of powdery, heady white florals, but it's not that here. It's actually blended with beautiful incense. And on my skin, the incense really comes out. It kind of overtakes the florals. On my wife, the florals are a little bit more prominent, but on me, it's that incense. Imagine Signature Rosé if you've tried it, and this is a very crude way of putting it, but replace the rose with white florals. That's kind of what you get here. It's still very much the signature DNA. Again, cohesiveness is here. A white floral fragrance that is way more unisex than you would think. Definitely worth checking out. Next, let's talk about a very well-known niche brand in the community, and that is the House of Amouage, based out of the Middle East. They're based out of Oman. Beautiful heritage. They have such a wonderful aesthetic. I love how the culture, I love how the history of the region comes through in their perfumery, in their presentations. You hold an Amouage bottle in your hand and you're holding quality. I think you know what I'm talking about. Especially Overture Man, good Lord. I mean, the frosted nature of this is stunning to me. I never get tired of looking at this bottle with the color of the juice. I love this like bronze cap. And then we also have Lineage. I'll start with Lineage, which is a resinous aquatic. It is a very powerful, very resinous, incensey, fresh aquatic. It's a weird combination, but it works. But I'm warning you, it is very strong. You don't need more than 2 or 3 sprays of this. I would save it for when it's not too warm, but I think you could pull it off summer nights. It's just gonna smell pretty elegant. Overture Man, I save this for very special occasions when it's not warm. This is a showstopper. This is something you have to love, otherwise you're gonna feel very insecure wearing this fragrance. It is a little bit animalistic. There's a slight funky edge to it, but there's a lot of richness, sweet cognac, spices, resins, authoritative in an elegant way. Beautiful stuff and definitely worth checking out. Let's talk about the Turkish brand of Alghabra Parfums. The presentation of these fragrances is actually quite simple, but it's still quality. You pick it up, even just by looking at it, you can tell, okay, there's straight edges here, not a whole lot of flair, not a whole lot of decor or ornate nature, but they are still quality in their simplicity. The two I'm going to feature here, Scent of Paradise, which is in the realm of something like Silver Mountain Water from Creed, but perhaps a little bit more accessible, less of that inky feel, which actually I get none of that here. A little bit more on the citrusy, fruity side of things, still musky and fresh and light, a little bit cooling in a way, perfect for the summer, but still has some class to it. And then one I'm really loving, Eye of Seven Hills. This is relatively new to my collection. This is like boozy, like whiskey or rum. There is caramel, there's tobacco, vanilla. It is rich, it is mouth-watering, but kind of sexy. Definitely nighttime material for the fall and winter when you want to dress up a little bit more. You put this in a black shirt, a nice fitting black shirt, they better watch out. It smells succulent. Eye of Seven Hills, Alghabra Parfums. Beautiful stuff. Definitely worth checking out their discovery set. Let's talk about the House of Jovoy, a Parisian house. Honestly, I only have 2 of their fragrances in full bottle form. I've tried several of them over the years in samples, but these 2 are the ones I have. I love both of them. There's others I still want to get, but the 2 I'm going to talk about here, and again, you look at these bottles, very unique in terms of design. The weight of them is kind of remarkable. Beautiful heavy metal caps, cool shapes, really, really interesting perfumery, even just from a visual and tactile standpoint. But the fragrances inside are special. They kind of have a DNA to them. They're not going to be for everyone. They tend to be a little bit more edgy, and they tend to feature slightly more abrasive notes, things like heavy vetivers and patchouli, but that doesn't make them unwearable. They're just very particular tastes, very specific scent profiles. This one is called L'Art de la Guerre, the Art of War is what it translates to. And this is a rhubarb and oak moss fragrance, maybe a little bit of leather. It is kind of fresh and crisp, fruity, but in this tart way, kind of bittersweet. And there's this really rich, dry, mossy woodiness that backs that up. There's more to it than that, maybe some immortelle, which adds a little bit of this unusual maple curry-like feel. That may not sound very pleasant, but it works with the composition and it makes it stand out. And this is still currently my favorite, Incident Diplomatique. It is a vetiver forward fragrance with some patchouli, kind of smoky and ashy smelling, definitely woody, has a little nutmeg in there, and the nutmeg mixed with the mandarin orange, I've always said, reminds me a little bit of some kind of booziness. It smells wet, like the wood is wet and dripping and damp. Maybe some patchouli in there adds to that as well. It just smells distinguished, such a unique take on vetiver. I know a lot of you guys can attest to the presentation for the house of Argos Fragrances. The bottles, also custom bottles. You just look at them, you want to pick them up, you want to touch them, you want to hold them. When you finally do, the tactile experience lives up to the visual. These beautiful angles, they represent these pillars, thick glass base. The caps are metal. This new satin finish that they've gone with is just stunning. And the plaques on the front that feature artwork are just beautiful. They are hand painted. There's a lot of care, a lot of love that goes into these fragrances. This one up here is probably one of my most worn, one of my absolute favorites, and it is Brivido Della Caccia. Also happens to be one of my most complimented from the house, albeit a little strange. It is a smoky, leathery, woody fragrance with a sharp green herbal quality from mate tea, from juniper berry, a little tiny bit of sweetness tucked in there as it dries, but it's mostly a green, foresty, woody, smoky fragrance that just smells very refined. And then we have one of their newer offerings. This is called Birth of Venus, and gosh, this is so beautiful, so unique. This is, bear with me here, salty chocolate in the ocean. That might sound weird, with some rose, with some opulent rose. It's kind of sweet, floral, but with this beautiful mouth-watering chocolate feel that's salty and kind of fresh, but it's ultimately pretty rich. Some guys might find it a little feminine. I think it's perfectly unisex. This is a special occasion fragrance. This is like date night with your wife. But ladies, you could easily rock this too if you happen to be watching this video here. But do check out Argos. I have a little discount code down below with them if you want to check them out. Get their discovery set, try all their fragrances. I guarantee you'll find one that you love. And the last house we'll talk about in this video, again, no particular order here, is the house of Mind Games. I love Mind Games aesthetic. I love the theme that they have that ties through all of their fragrances. It's a simple one, but it's one with so much dimension to it, so many possibilities. The theme of the game of chess, and they really lean all the way into it. They don't hold back with how they use different themes from the game to extrapolate different ideas for fragrances, and the perfumers they're recruiting are doing wonderful work. This one up here is called Queening. This one is pretty unisex, kind of right down the middle. This powdery, fresh vanilla with a little bit of rum, a little bit buttery and soft with orris. It smells just posh, but you gotta like vanilla. It's a pretty vanilla forward fragrance, but again, perfectly unisex, just smells beautiful. It just smells really, really pleasant in the air. When you catch a whiff of it, you'll be floating around like Jerry. And then this one is probably still my favorite, definitely my most worn from the house, and that is Gambit. This is kind of a daily driver. It could be a fragrance you can wear anywhere, anytime, easily signature scent material, kind of fresh, spicy shower gel leaning, almost leaning in like a Dior Sauvage territory, but maybe more like Sauvage Elixir, but not quite there. It is its own thing. It's primarily based on patchouli with some petitgrain. There's a darkness to it while still being pretty fresh and spicy. With a cleanliness, I've gotten a lot of great feedback on this. I've had a lot of people asking me what I'm wearing when I wear this, and I'll write it down or I'll show them the picture.
They're always a little bit turned off by the price,
which is why I definitely recommend getting a discovery set. So I'll link to a discovery set down below for Mind Games. There's many other favorites. I know a lot of you guys mentioned you have others that I haven't even tried yet, and I have a discovery set somewhere I need to dig into. Definitely worth trying. That is Mind Games. All right, well, those are the 7 brands that are going to make this installment. I already have a handful of brands picked out. If you guys want to see a second round like this, I want to know if you've tried any of the brands I'm talking about. I know many of you guys have tried a lot of these brands, and if you have yet to try any fragrances from these brands, or you're just curious, there's going to be links down below once again to check out some discovery sets. Look around their websites, see if you like their aesthetics, read the stories, check out what moves you. But thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.